In Tiger, I had a lot of tussle with Salman. I come from a background of documentaries, and when I used to look at Bollywood films, I used to struggle sometimes as an audience with stories set in with no social context, historical context, political context. And therefore, growing up, my favorite filmmaker was Mani Ratnam from the South, who was doing that. When I came in with a Kabul Express, which was hugely political, it was set in Afghanistan. It was still a small film. And from there, then Aditya Chopra, who was my producer of my first three films, he felt that, you know, he said, I'm apolitical, but when I was watching Kabul Express, you let me access the politics when I needed to understand what's happening. And if you can do that, I feel you should go a little more mainstream. And then followed a film called New York, which also became very successful. It was against the backdrop of post 9/11 illegal detentions that took place. So when it and then I did Tiger, which was the start of the whole spyverse, which was also a little, from my point of view, very political because it was actually subverting what we called, this so-called sense of jingoism and nationalism. And then in Tiger, I had a lot of tussle with Salman because that's the first time I'd just done two films. He was the reigning sort of superstar of the industry. But in that tussle, I sort of understood him. I spent a lot of time with him, and I realized that he feels very strongly about certain issues, like the composite culture of India, about secularism, about And I said, but you've never articulated this on the platform of which you're a demigod. And why is that? Why are we? And the pressure after creating Ekta Tiger was to make another Tiger, right? Because that's the conventional wisdom in our industry. You make a hit film, you have to make another hit film. Even after New York, they told me make a sequel, and I had to tell them, "Have you seen the film? I've shot everybody dead. How do I make the sequel?" And I didn't want to go down that route. I didn't want to do a Tiger 2. I had had my fun with doing action, and I said, okay, that's enough. I want to move on. And I took this story to Salman, knowing it's the antithesis of what Salman was at that point in time. It was the antithesis of what he and I had created in terms of this super character called Tiger. But he jumped at it because it really hit home. And he said that, you know what, we'll produce this, and became his first production. Um, because there was no action. In fact, he's only being beaten up, and that too by Pakistani policemen, which is completely taboo. Um, so, in a sense, it brought together for me what I was always trying to do. When I moved from documentaries to mainstream cinema, I knew I want to use the format of mainstream cinema, but yet have a political base, have the politics in the layers beneath. But I always look for that balance where you can watch the film and enjoy it at face value, but if you can access the politics and the layers beneath, you'll just find that film that much more profound and enjoyable. And which is what exactly happened with Bajrangi. People loved it at face value. It was a very entertaining, enjoyable, emotional film. But those who access the layers beneath found it that much more better, and that's why it still gets the love that it does, after 10 years.